We are looking at the Attention Residuals technical report by the Kimi team at Moonshot AI today. And, well, if you are building deep neural networks right now, you might actually be throwing away half your model's capacity without even realizing it. Standard residual connections, the backbone of every modern transformer, are officially dumb.
Yeah, completely unoptimized.
Right. They uniformly add up layer outputs, which causes this phenomenon called PreNorm Dilution. Essentially, your early layer information gets completely buried the deeper your network gets. So this paper proposes a massive fix. They replace that fixed, unweighted addition with a learned softmax attention mechanism over depth.
Over depth, exactly.
Every single layer dynamically chooses which previous layers to pull data from using a learned pseudo-query. Now, obviously, attending to every single previous layer destroys memory and pipeline parallelism.
Oh, totally.
So the Kimi team introduces Block AttnRes. They chunk the layers into blocks, reducing the communication bottleneck from O of LD down to O of ND. The result: evaluated on a 48 billion parameter MOE model trained on 1.4 trillion tokens, this acts like a 1.25x compute multiplier. Massive gains in math, code, and multi-step reasoning.
Yeah, and for the AI researchers and ML engineers listening right now, I just want to emphasize that this is a fundamental architectural rethink of the residual stream itself. I mean, we are moving from linear fixed accumulation to dynamic softmax depth-wise attention.
Right.
It completely changes how a model experiences its own depth. It's moving away from this rigid highway of data and toward like a searchable dynamic database of representations.
Okay, so the mechanics of that rigid highway, that's exactly what we need to unpack first. If we look at the standard residual connection, I mean, the current state just equals the previous state plus the new transformation. It acts remarkably like a snowball rolling down a mountain.
That is a great analogy.
Yeah. It starts small at the first layer, but as it rolls through 50 or 100 layers, it just keeps packing on more and more snow. By the time that massive snowball reaches the bottom of the hill, the original snowflake at the absolute core is buried under feet of dense ice.
Completely hidden.
Which raises a huge question based on recent literature. I mean, that recent Gromov paper showed we could prune a massive chunk of layers out of a transformer without ruining the model's performance. Wait, if early layers just get hopelessly buried by this massive magnitude growth, why do we even keep them around?
Well, the authors of this report actually cite that exact pruning observation to highlight the severity of PreNorm dilution. The mechanism burying your snowflake is rooted in how layer normalization interacts with unweighted sums.
Okay, how so?
Think about what PreNorm physically does in the math. Before a signal goes into an attention or MLP block, it gets normalized, usually by an RMS norm. But the residual stream itself, like the main trunk of the network, skips that normalization.
Oh, it just keeps accumulating outputs layer after layer.
Exactly. And because nobody is waiting or restricting that accumulation, the magnitude of the hidden states in that stream grows linearly with depth. That is the O of L magnitude growth.
So the normalizer sees this massive growing snowball and has to aggressively divide the incoming signal to scale it back down to a usable variance.
That is the exact trap. As the variance of the residual stream explodes, the normalizer applies a massive denominator. For the deeper layers to have any meaningful impact on the network's final output, they are basically forced to learn increasingly larger and louder outputs just to punch through that normalization penalty.
Wow, okay.
Yeah. If layer 50 wants to inject a nuanced piece of new information, it has to scream over the accumulated mathematically dense noise of the previous 49 layers. The network fundamentally loses the ability to selectively retrieve early layer information. That original snowflake isn't just hidden functionally, it's an irreversible loss of high-resolution data.
Man, okay, so if the residual stream is just a blunt accumulation, a dumb highway where everyone is shouting, how do we introduce routing? I mean, the Kimi team didn't just invent a routing concept out of thin air, right? They looked at how the architecture historically solved this exact same bottleneck over the sequence dimension, over time.
They did, yeah. They refer to this as the sequence depth duality.
Sequence depth duality, I love that.
It's a really profound way to conceptualize the architecture. Let's rewind to early natural language processing. Old recurrent neural networks, RNNs, faced a massive bottleneck over time. They tried to compress an entire sequence of words into a single fixed-size hidden state.
Right, and it failed because early words got overwritten by recent words.
Exactly. The transformer solved that time-based bottleneck by introducing sequence attention, allowing token number 50 to look directly back at token number 1. The Keeney team realized that standard residual connections compressing all prior layer information into a single state over depth is mathematically identical to the RNN bottleneck over time.
Oh, wow.
So they just apply the transformers fix to the depth dimension.
Wait, if we are literally doing self-attention but looking down through the model's own layers rather than across the tokens in a sentence, the mechanics have to be different. I mean, a token generates a unique query based on its semantic meaning. If a layer is just looking back through previous layers, what is it using as a query?
The authors define a mechanism called full AttnRes. Instead of generating dynamic queries per token, each layer gets a single learned pseudo-query vector.
Just one?
Yep, it is just one static d-dimensional vector per layer learned during training. This pseudo-query computes softmax attention scores over all the previous layer outputs. The input to any given layer becomes the sum of those attention weights multiplied by the previous layer outputs.
But wait, if every layer is competing in a softmax distribution, early layer embeddings are fighting for probability mass against deep layer outputs. And we just established that deep layer outputs have massively inflated magnitudes because of the snowball effect.
Right.
Wouldn't the deep layers just auto-win the dot product every single time?
They absolutely would, which is why the authors intervene mathematically. To prevent the naturally louder, deeper layers from dominating the softmax competition, they apply an RMS norm strictly to the keys.
The previous layer outputs.
Exactly, the previous layer outputs. They normalize the keys before computing the attention scores. This levels the playing field. The layer with the loudest magnitude can no longer drown out the quiet, early layers just by brute force.
That makes total sense.
Yeah. Standard residuals and even recent variants are essentially depth-wise linear attention. Full AttnRes upgrades this to depth-wise softmax attention, which completes the linear to softmax transition for depth that revolutionized sequence modeling in the first place.
Okay, so full AttnRes makes perfect sense on a whiteboard. But, taking off the researcher hat and putting on the ML infrastructure hat, this sounds like a deployment nightmare. If a model has 100 layers, and layer 100 needs to compute attention over the outputs of layers 1 through 99, you've introduced an O of LD communication bottleneck.
Oh, it is a massive roadblock for distributed systems. I mean, for vanilla training on a single GPU, keeping all previous activations in memory is fine because you need them for backpropagation anyway.
Right, sure.
But frontier models, like a 48 billion parameter mixture of experts, are spread across massive GPU clusters. We use pipeline parallelism, where different groups of layers live on different physical servers.
Oh, so you'd have to pass everything over the network.
Exactly. Transmitting every single previous layer output across those physical server boundaries over NVLink or InfiniBand is a complete communication disaster. The network overhead scales multiplicatively with the number of layers and the hidden dimension.
So if passing every single layer output destroys the interconnect bandwidth, there has to be a compression step. I'd assume you have to chunk the layers. But wouldn't chunking layers into summaries completely destroy the high-resolution retrieval that makes full AttnRes work in the first place?
You'd think so, yeah. But the Keeney team introduces Block Attention Residuals, or Block AttnRes, and the ablation data proves the high-resolution retrieval actually survives the compression.
Really? How?
Well, instead of looking at every individual layer, they group the L total layers into N blocks. Within each specific block, they revert to the standard residual accumulation, reducing the entire block down to a single partial sum.
Huh.
Then the dynamic cross-block attention only happens over those N block level representations, plus the original raw token embedding. This single architectural change drops the communication bottleneck from O of LD all the way down to O of ND.
Ah, I see. It's essentially moving from trying to memorize every single sentence of a textbook to just keeping a highly accurate summary of each chapter. The query vector doesn't need to find the exact sentence in Chapter 1. It just needs the Chapter 1 summary to recall the foundational variables.
That chapter summary analogy captures the semantic hierarchy perfectly. The network processes information in phases. You don't necessarily need the isolated feature map of layer 3 if you have the consolidated semantic milestone of layers 1 through 4.
That makes sense.
Yeah, and the authors found that setting N to around 8 blocks recovers almost all the mathematical benefits of full AttnRes. They did a rigorous sweep over the block size, grouping 2 layers, 4 layers, and 8 layers per block. The validation loss barely degraded compared to the theoretically perfect full AttnRes, while the memory overhead remained completely flat per layer.
It's brilliant that block chunking solves the raw theoretical bottleneck. But training a 1.4 trillion token run requires extreme pipeline orchestration. I mean, even with chapter summaries, if you have to transmit the entire history of chapter summaries every time a microbatch crosses a virtual pipeline stage, won't the training loop still stall out waiting for the network interface?
This is where the systems engineering elevates the paper from theory to production. For training, they engineered cross-stage caching.
Okay, what is that?
In an interleaved pipeline schedule, naively transmitting the full block history at every boundary results in O of C communication, meaning communication proportional to the total channel history. But instead, the physical GPU ranks cache the historical blocks locally in memory.
Yes.
Right. When a microbatch moves to the next stage, the system only transmits the incremental blocks accumulated since the last transfer. This drops the communication peak cost down to O of P, proportional only to the pipeline stages. It allows the communication to completely overlap with the GPU computation.
Keeping the FLOP utilization incredibly high.
Exactly.
But training optimization is a one-time cost, though. My bigger worry with any custom attention mechanism across layers is deployment. Inference latency is dictated by memory bandwidth. Memory reads are the absolute enemy of fast token generation.
Definitely.
If every single token generated during inference has to read a history of block summaries, aren't we just choking our time to first token and destroying our sequential decoding speed?
Inference latency is the graveyard for a lot of custom architectures, for sure. But they address the memory bandwidth wall directly with a two-phase computation strategy. And the key lies in those pseudo-queries we discussed earlier.
Yeah.
Because the pseudo-queries are learned parameters, they are input independent. The query for layer 50 is the exact same vector, regardless of whether the input token is Apple or Quantum.
Oh, because it doesn't depend on the token, the system knows exactly what memory to fetch before the layer even starts processing.
Exactly the mechanism. Phase 1 of inference leverages this by batching the interblock attention memory accesses across all the layers within a block simultaneously.
So it's not reading layer by layer.
Nope. Instead of reading from the GPU's high bandwidth memory layer by layer sequentially, it reads the block history once, computes the attention scores for all layers in the current block in parallel, and caches them.
Wow.
Yeah, this drastic batching amortizes the read cost, dropping it to just 5.5 times the hidden dimension per layer. To put how efficient that is into perspective, older residual generalization methods like MHC require 34 times the hidden dimension in memory reads per layer.
That's a massive reduction. So by pre-computing the attention weights for a whole block, phase 2 is just executing the math.
Phase 2 simply executes the intra-block sequential updates using an online softmax merge. Because of this optimization, the end-to-end inference latency overhead in production is actually less than 2%.
Under 2%.
Yeah. They even engineered sequence sharding across tensor parallel devices, ensuring that pre-filling massive contexts like 128,000 tokens doesn't blow up the key value cache memory limits.
Taking a 2% latency hit to fundamentally fix the residual stream is an incredible trade-off. The theory is airtight and the systems engineering is clearly production ready. So let's look at the actual scaling laws. They swept this architecture from 194 million parameters all the way up to 119 billion active parameters, right?
They did, and the scaling curves over that massive parameter range are highly consistent. Block AttnRes maps to a stable 1.25x compute advantage over the baseline transformer.
Okay, so what does that mean in practical terms?
In practical terms, a standard baseline model would need to consume 25% more training FLOPs, which translates to millions of dollars in compute time just to reach the same validation loss as the Block AttnRes model.
That is wild. And the real-world validation of that compute advantage is the Kimi linear integration. They didn't just stop at loss curves. They trained a 48 billion total parameter MOE model, activating 3 billion parameters per token on 1.4 trillion tokens.
Utilizing the muon optimizer, which uses orthogonal momentum to stabilize dense matrix updates, and a modern warm-up stable decay learning rate schedule. The training dynamics of that 48B model physically proved a theory.
Did the output magnitudes actually stay bounded?
They did. In the baseline run, the output magnitudes of the residual stream grew wildly with depth, just like the snowball. But in the Block AttnRes run, the output magnitudes remained strictly bounded. Consequently, the gradient magnitudes distributed much more uniformly across the entire network during backpropagation.
Rather than exploding early on and vanishing deep down.
Exactly. The snowball was finally melted down.
Looking at the downstream performance benchmarks, the model saw a plus 7.5 point jump in GPQA Diamond, a plus 3.6 point jump in math, and plus 3.1 in human evil for coding. And, if you think about the mechanics of coding or intense mathematical proofs, this jump makes complete sense to me.
How so?
Well, to solve a hard coding problem, the network needs to actively look back at the specific variables declared on line 1, not just blindly ingest the last operation completed by the layer immediately preceding it. The model finally has a working memory of its own logical steps.
That insight is completely validated by the paper's visualization of learned attention weights. If you look at Figure 8, it visualizes the learned attention weights over depth. You can physically map the models explicitly learning off-diagonal skip connections.
Meaning they reach all the way back.
Yes. The embedding layer, the very first raw token input, retains non-trivial attention weight throughout the entire depth of the network. The deep layers are actively reaching back to the architectural beginning to recall the raw semantic input, proving the routing is capturing those early variable declarations.
That is so cool. But, to really understand what makes an architecture tick, you have to look at what breaks it. The ablations in the report highlight a few non-negotiable components. Like, if you remove the RMS norm on the keys, performance drops, proving that stopping loud layers from dominating the softmax is critical.
Right.
But interestingly, when they tried using a sigmoid function instead of softmax, the performance also degraded.
Well, softmax provides a critical property called competitive normalization.
Okay, what does that mean here?
Because all the attention probabilities must sum to 1. A softmax forces the model to make sharp, decisive choices about which specific layer summary to pull from.
Ah, I see.
A sigmoid allows the model to just vaguely listen to everything at once, which basically reintroduces a form of dilution. The sharp routing is what isolates the critical information.
Okay, so if the model is routing information so efficiently, did the Kimi team find that this alters the optimal shape of the transformer itself?
It drastically alters capacity reallocation. They ran a study where they fixed the total compute budget and parameter count and solely altered the depth-to-width ratio.
Essentially testing whether the model wants to be tall and skinny or short and wide.
Exactly. For a baseline model, the lowest loss occurs at a depth-to-width ratio of 60. But integrating AttnRes shifts the optimal ratio down to 45.
Wait, a lower depth-to-width ratio mathematically means a deeper, narrower network.
Right.
If AttnRes prefers deeper networks, that introduces a friction point for deployment. Passing through more layers inherently slows down sequential decoding, regardless of how fast your memory reads are.
That is the core deployment trade-off engineers have to navigate. AttnRes unlocks the mathematical ability to exploit extreme depth without suffering from gradient vanishing or PreNorm dilution. The network's loss curve actually wants to be deeper, because it can finally use those layer 80 or layer 90 representations effectively.
But pushing it deeper hits the latency budget.
Yeah, as the authors clearly note, pushing the network deeper incurs higher raw inference latency. The shifted optimum is a fantastic diagnostic tool proving the method's efficacy, but in a production environment, you have to balance that raw accuracy gain against your strict latency budget.
We are really transitioning from treating model depth as a rigid, fixed highway to a dynamic, searchable database of representations. That is a massive paradigm shift for architecture design.
It absolutely is.
So to wrap up this deep dive into the source material, if you are tuning architectures right now, I want to leave you with a provocative thought that builds on this dynamic routing. If we have now proven that routing information over depth can be learned dynamically via attention, what happens when we make those routing paths fully sparse?
Oh, wow.
Right. Could an LLM eventually learn to dynamically bypass 80% of its layers for simple tokens like the word the, and only activate the deep, complex attention pathways for intense mathematical reasoning? It completely redefines layer depth as a dynamic computational budget rather than a fixed sequence.
Conditional execution based on learned routing is definitely the absolute next frontier. I mean, once the model controls its own information flow over depth, deciding whether or not to even compute a layer is the logical evolution.
It fundamentally changes how we scale. Well, if you want to explore the underlying code and the systems engineering that makes Block AttnRes scalable, check out the Kimi team's repository at Moonshot AI. Thank you for joining us for AI Paper Podcasts. Talk to you next time.